Welcome, everybody, to the Ever Evolving Truth. We are back for segment number 3. With me right now is Krista. Leah will be hopefully signing on in a couple minutes. She was just finishing up voting. Mounts is on his way home from a haircut. All very acceptable things to do during Election Day. Keep your mind off of it, of course. I did want to say, I wanted to ask you, Chris, have you started drinking yet?
I have not. I was going to start after a meeting I had at 3, and then I got distracted.
Mm-hmm.
But my cup is empty, and that'll be the next thing that I get.
Ready to accept alcohol in a mixer?
100%. Well, maybe just alcohol. You never know.
Just an alcohol.
Okay. Yeah, just an alcohol.
Fair enough.
Who needs a mixer these days?
If you are listening, watching out there, feel free to comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you're experiencing. If you want to hop on and talk with us for a little bit, you certainly can. Just ask for the link. If you want to share some pictures of you at your polling place or with your I voted sticker, do so. Share it on your social media. Use the hashtag vote, the number 4, and the word ever. Vote forever so we can organize it, share it, feature it, and we know that you guys are out there voting. We talked about some big stories early on. Not a lot has changed since we last signed on, but I did want to get on here and I wanted to talk about the Senate races that we're going to be focusing on today. Depending on who you watch, what source you read, there's 10 to 12 really important Senate races that are really going to decide the fate of the country, if you will, or what can be done no matter who wins the presidency. So back when this election started, or I should say back when Donald Trump won the presidency, obviously the focus is first and foremost on the midterms. Almost immediately you start hearing about that. And we started shortly after Donald Trump was elected, we started hearing, blue wave, blue wave, blue wave. And right there, the goal was to take back the House and just have at least one section of the government that put a check on Donald Trump and his policies. But at that point, there was really no chance of us winning the House back in the midterms, or I'm sorry, the Senate back in the midterms. But what we did see is a complete bounce back as far as what voters told us, and they essentially said by 10 million votes across the country, they said we do not approve of an unchecked Donald Trump. Now, fast forward to now, there is a 75% chance that Democrats have a chance to take back control in the Senate and keep, very likely, if not 100% likely, to keep control of the House. So that means if Joe Biden wins the presidency, we would have Joe Biden as president, as Democrat, we would have full control over Congress, and they're able to make legislation at that point.
In theory.
Now, that depends on a lot, because right now, other than getting judges approved and the budget reconciliation, which is a whole other complicated thing that we would need to talk about, you would need 60 votes to pass any sort of major legislation. So Democrats would have to get rid of the filibuster because there's no chance of us getting 60 votes in the Senate. So they would have to pass. They would have to nuke the filibuster. In that case, we would only need a majority, and we would only need to take back a total of. We would only have to flip a total of 3 Senate seats in order to get majority, because at that point it would be 50-50, and the vice president breaks a tie. So again, assuming Joe Biden wins, Kamala Harris could break any tie, which would go in our favor, of course. What is most likely to happen, though, we would need, even if Joe Biden wins, we would need probably to flip 5 total seats, because the first one that we want to talk about is the race in Alabama.
Yeah.
Alabama is the most likely to flip. And if you remember, and it's historic, and I don't want to downplay the accomplishment of Mr. Doug Jones. He won a special election against Roy Moore, who is credibly accused pedophile and total creep. And he won it narrowly. Nicely. Right. Yeah. He won it narrowly, but he did win it. And his seat is up for election, and he is up against Tommy Tuberville, who is a legend in the South, former Auburn football coach, I believe. And he is not likely to win that race. So right then and there, like currently the way it stands, for us to take back control of the House, we would need to flip 4 seats. That would give us a 51-49 advantage for Democrats, right? If we won 4 seats the way things sit, and if we retained all of the current seats, but we are not likely to retain the one in Alabama. So right there, now we have to flip 5 in order to get a true majority. 4 if we win the presidency, 5 just to have a true majority, 51-49. So I know that's a lot taken. So that leaves. So if we just cancel that race out, because I don't even know why. I know why it's on the list. It's up there with the most likely to flip, but it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Republicans are going to win back that seat. So let's assume that we need to win 4 seats or 5 seats essentially. And the reason I say 5 is because if we win 4, it's a tie, and Trump gets reelected, the tiebreaker goes to Mike Pence. So we would have to win the presidency. So let's assume that we're not going to win the presidency just for this discussion, and we need 5 seats. So I want to talk about the races, why they're important, and at this point, there's really nothing you can do, but they're worth watching. So the first one is that I want to talk about is Arizona. Martha McSally against Mark Kelly. 538, which is a wonderful website. Go to 538.com. They take an average of all the polls, not just national polls, but state polls. They have a formula. The guy, I forget the guy's name who started the site, but he's an absolute mathematical genius. So he's really good, and their polls are very accurate. They predicted, even though they were predicting Hillary Clinton to win in 2016, they outlined the path for Donald Trump to essentially win. So they essentially called Donald Trump's win. Like, if he's going to win, this is the way it's going to be, and they were 100% exactly right. So very trustworthy, in my opinion. Anyway, Martha McSally is the incumbent. She's a Republican. Mark Kelly, the Democrat. They're giving Mark Kelly a 78% chance to win this seat. I think that's high enough to kind of assume that's going to happen. And another reason I think Joe Biden is very likely to win Arizona this time and affect that down ballot. And if you think about McSally's run, she's very much trying to separate herself from Donald Trump. And I'm a political junkie in this case. I listen to a lot of political podcasts and things like that. So if you follow this kind of stuff, you know that early on in Trump's presidency, she was voting with him. She was supporting him in every move he made until the midterms, and found out that this guy's quite unpopular amongst just about everybody. And so it looks like that's going to flip. So that brings us back down to 4 needed for the straight majority. Another one that's very, very likely to flip is Colorado. Cory Gardner is the incumbent. He's a Republican. John Hickenlooper is a former governor. He's very popular. 538 is giving them John Hickenlooper an 84% chance to win. And again, that's high enough where you can kind of assume, barring anything crazy happening, like super low turnout or anything like. But Colorado, even though it's a battleground state, is still very progressive. They're into mail-in voting. They're one of the first states to legalize marijuana recreationally. Like, they're very progressive minded and thinking. So they've done this early voting thing so far, and they're at record numbers too. So I cannot see Cory Gardner retaining his seat there. I can't see it. There's no way that I can see it at this point. Again, that's just an opinion. I'm not an expert by any means when it comes to this stuff, but if the writing's on the wall, if you ask me. So let's assume John Hickenlooper wins. Now we're down to 3 seats that we need to flip in order to have a majority. The next one they have here, Susan Collins, Sarah Gideon. Susan Collins, she's always in the news because she tends to publicly break rank from Republicans in certain situations. You probably remember her talking about Kavanaugh during the impeachment trial. She was openly, I think she spoke in favor of allowing new evidence in that impeachment trial. So she was on record. She was the only Republican that didn't vote to confirm Amy Coney Barrett. This is all because she's in a very down the middle state, and she's been in she's been in Congress a long time, but again, we're seeing that Trump is a very unpopular president, which is affecting these down. So
well,
this
he's
is
not. I wouldn't say that he's unpopular. You can't say that. He's just not PC.
his unfavorability rating is as low as it can be in this day and age.
But
So
at the same time, he has a ton of followers who would disagree with you. So
well, yeah, but they're in certain areas. So speaking in Maine here, speaking about Maine here, his favorability rating is very low, and it's affecting Susan Collins, who up until the past couple of years has been a popular incumbent. So this one's closer. It's the 59% chance to win for Sarah Gideon, which is the Democratic challenger, and certainly 59% is not a foregone conclusion. So it's tough to call that one for sure, but it's certainly a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hi, Leah. Leah, we're just talking about the Senate races that we're going to be focusing on today. So we have a bunch that we already said we need 5 seats essentially, because Alabama is going to flip back to Republican, which takes our number from 4 to 5. Now we're back down to 3 because Cory Gardner most likely will lose, and Martha McSally in Arizona will most likely lose. We need 3. We're talking about Susan Collins in Maine. It's a closer race. There's a chance that she keeps her seat. Not a great chance, but certainly we can't assume with confidence that it's going to flip in our favor. So that brings us to North Carolina, where Tom Tillis is the incumbent, Cal Cunningham, Democratic challenger. This one is interesting because North Carolina is a purple state, but it's so gerrymandered. That doesn't affect the Senate, but it's so gerrymandered. They've suppressed the vote so much here. In fact, there was a federal judge in North Carolina that struck down we talked about it a little bit before. I don't remember the details off the top of my head, but they struck down some sort of legislation from Republicans in North Carolina and said they were targeting black voters with sniper-like precision. So this one is interesting because Cal Cunningham, 538, is giving him a 68% chance to flip the seat. So that's, anything over 70%, I can see kind of like, all right, barring something crazy happening, it's most likely going to go to who they're favoring. This one's right there. So I'm going to count it. That brings us down to 2 that we need to flip in order to have a true majority. The next one, Joni Ernst in Iowa against Teresa Greenfield. Joni Ernst being the incumbent Republican. Teresa Greenfield, 58% chance to win. Again, not a foregone conclusion. This is interesting because Joni Ernst, if you remember, I think it was she did one of Obama's State of the Union addresses. She was the Republican response to it. Mm-hmm. And she talked about wearing bread bags on her feet to walk to school and shit. It was so creepy, if you remember that. Yeah. Oh, my God. It was so creepy. It made no sense. She's a disgusting human being, in my opinion. I want to see this one flip. I don't know if it will. We can't assume it's going to. But Iowa is breaking towards Biden at least a little bit. Trump won it in 2016 by a fairly large enough margin, but it's tightened up. He still might win it, but it could go either way. Another interesting state, Montana. Steve Daines is a Republican incumbent. Steve Bullock is the Democratic challenger. 538 gives Steve Bullock 69% chance. Oh, I'm sorry. 69% chance, for Steve Daines to win. Montana's interesting because there seems to be some liberal, and there's a liberal governor. There's but most of the state's Republican. So Montana's interesting, but this is certainly not. Montana looks like they're going to retain their seat. So this doesn't help us in any way, but it doesn't take away a seat either. Same thing in Georgia's an interesting state because it's trending. It's trending towards a Democratic leaning electorate. So both Senate seats in Georgia are up. One, David Perdue, I don't know a whole lot about him, or the challenger Jeff Ossoff. It's a 57% chance for David Perdue, who's the incumbent, to retain the seat. So that's close. There's certainly a chance it could go that way. We can't we can't assume it though. And then the second Senate seat up is Kenny Loeffler, Republican incumbent. against Doug Collins, who's also a Republican here. I have to look more into this, or Rachel Warnock, who's the Democratic challenger. So I don't know if there's 3 people running
There's
here, or
3.
or
Yeah,
there's a libertarian. Maybe they have one of the Republicans listed as a libertarian. I don't know, but it's 63% chance for again, this is according to 538, for the Democratic Rachel Warnock challenger to take that seat. So again, not enough for us to assume that it's going to go that way, but that's a good chance. That's a good chance. Another guy that I would love to see go. Once we get through these, then we can kind of talk about him a little bit. South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, Jamie Harrison, Jamie Harrison, Democratic challenger. They're giving 538 is giving 77% chance for Lindsey Graham to retain the seat. Please, people,
he's not going to lose.
Get him the fuck out of politics. He is.
I agree.
Just again one of the worst human beings ever.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas, we won't even talk about that. 80% chance for Republicans to win. Alaska, 77% chance for Republicans to retain their seat. Michigan, Gary Peters being a Democrat, he's the incumbent. John James, Republican challenger. They're giving Gary Peters an 83% chance to keep his seat, but that doesn't help us gain a seat, right? And then the last 3 they have on here, Texas, Kentucky, Mississippi, all 80% and above to retain their seats. So we're 2 seats away, which means we're going to have to win 2 of these. The Susan Collins, we're going to have to beat Susan Collins at 59%. Joni Ernst, we're going to have to beat at 58%. We're favored there. Or there's one of these seats in Georgia. We're going to have to win, or there's going to have to be a big surprise.
I don't see how any of that's going to happen. I just don't see us taking a true majority in the Senate. I don't see a real true path to victory. Do you? I mean, a realistic one.
I do.
Really?
538 has a 75% chance of Democrats winning control in the Senate. So there's a couple other seats that I don't recognize on here. So I have a couple other. So I have a couple other sources up here. So I'm going to try and see. So Texas, there's some, talk about there being some close Senate races in there. So there's a chance to maybe pull a seat from there.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could have found my source. I was looking for it the whole time we were gone. I couldn't find it, but there was a source where it was like literally the top 10 seats most likely to flip. There was 2 Democrats on there, but 8 Republican seats that could flip, and they were all more favored for Democrats for sure. So I'm looking through all of them right now, and I'm trying to see them. But anyway, we're going to be focusing on some of those Senate seats. They're super important because, again, if Joe Biden gets elected, that's great. But if he can't do anything legislatively, there's nothing to do.
And also,
he won't be able to do anything.
And if Trump wins, let's say Trump wins, if we have the House and the Senate, it's going to make his life a lot more difficult, which would be beautiful too.
Yeah, it would be a nice contingency plan for sure. But again, then that's why we need that extra vote. So if Joe Biden wins and we can't pull off those last 2 seats, we'll have one. If we get one, we'll have a tie, 50-50. Joe Biden wins the election. Kamala Harris breaks the tie in any major legislation votes if they nuke the filibuster. However, judge-wise, if we get some federal judges in there, the filibuster's already been nuked by Mitch McConnell, and we can get some judges confirmed, which would be nice. So those are the Senate rates that we want to focus on. What are your thoughts, Lee? Is there a particular person that you want to see ousted, other than all of them?
Other than all of them, Lindsey Graham for sure. I mean, I don't know how he's just so old. Like, let's forget about his politics for a second. The man is just like
he just has a very punchable face.
Yeah, and he died 5 years ago, and somebody forgot to tell him. Like, this guy just has no business in politics anymore, and he's so like. Anyone that's a sycophant to Trump to me is just, I can't with you.
He's just like a sniveling coward.
He's a coward. That's exactly what he is. And he cares about his position way more than he cares about his constituents.
You know, I'm the same way with Susan Collins. Like, I don't want to rag on her because she's an old lady, but fuck you, Susan Collins. Like, come on, seriously.
She's
like,
pretty bad.
You know, like to push back a little bit against Brett Kavanaugh. But then when, like, you know, you hear the testimony of that woman, I forget her name off the top of my head. You talk about what it was like, and not even still vote for him, to vote to confirm him. Like, seriously, fuck you. You were never really opposed to it. You were just doing this for show. I'm tired of that.
Lest we forget with Susan Collins, she's one of the main reasons that we don't have a Senator Al Franken anymore in there.
Yeah.
She's a big part of that, and that pisses me off. That's unforgivable in my eyes.
Who, if you remember Al Franken, very questionable allegations, said, look, I'm happy to face these. Let's do a fair and detailed investigation into myself. He called for his own investigation.
Yes, he did.
Because he had nothing to hide. And it comes out later, it was never really, it was all bullshit. He wasn't even anywhere close. Like, if you look at the picture, he never actually touched her. He just, you know, if you look at the illusion, and it was like, first of all, there's so many people in Congress that have done much worse.
Our president is grabbing women by the pussy. So
right, and this is the typical Democratic Party. You make one little tiny mistake, even if you apologize for it, everybody shuns you because they're afraid of the optics. Al Franken was one of the few people that was liked by a Democrat, that was liked by the military. He could work across the aisle. He was liked by both Republicans and Democrats, and we get rid of him. You know, it's like, I wish you would run again. I think you would win.
I think you should run for president. I'm telling you.
I'd vote for him.
I'd vote for him. I think it would be like Jesse Ventura can run on the top of the ticket and he could be the VP and whatever. I just want a Jesse Ventura, somebody like Al Franken or Howard Stern.
Jesse Ventura is not running for president.
I know he's so old.
Yeah.
But I just feel like somebody like him. I think somebody like him is the type of person we need to actually make this country come back together. Because no matter what happens tonight, it's not going to stop. This division in this country is not going away today. And I think whatever happens tonight over the next 72 days, I don't see it getting better. I see it getting way worse.
I'm definitely
and it's a shame.
I'm definitely afraid. I went to go check out my polling place to see if the line was still as long as it was when I was there. And it was a little bit shorter, but still very long, very encouraging. Of course, we talked about Pennsylvania at length today. I'll say it again. If you did not receive your mail-in ballot and you're confused about what you can do, if you feel like you can't vote, that's wrong. You can absolutely go vote. Go to your polling place. Ask for a provisional ballot if you don't have your actual mail-in ballot. If it came late and you have it in hand physically, ask to surrender it, and they will get you a ballot. And you can go to the machine. And Leah, I wanted to ask you. You just got done voting. Mm-hmm. Did you happen to notice if there was a lot of people there turning in their ballots or asking for a provisional?
So I didn't notice that. However, my neighbor was walking out, and I asked him, like, how long were you there, whatever. And he had a mail-in ballot, and he went in there, asked for a provisional ballot. They told him that he could not have it because he didn't have his mail-in ballot in hand.
That's wrong.
They would not. I know, but they wouldn't give it to him. So his wife, luckily, was able to drive it down there and give it to him. And I told him that, and I was like, and he's like, well, I didn't know. Like, he had no idea.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have known anything about that either. Right. I also got asked for ID. And I was like, I don't have my ID on me. I purposely don't take my ID. Mm-hmm. And
Pennsylvania's rule is if it's your first time voting at that particular polling place, right, they will ask you for ID, but they are not supposed to if you've voted there before.
I've been voting there for a decade.
Right. And they have no right to ask you for ID.
Nope.
That is a form of voter suppression intimidation. It is.
I said 100%. That to her. I was like, no, I don't have my ID and you don't have the right to ask me.
Good.
So, and she just let me sign the book.
Right.
So it was that simple. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's insane. And look, I understand maybe with masks, maybe you want to ask people. I was afraid maybe that was going to be a thing. Like, people have masks on, but it's not like these people know me. They wouldn't know my face, you know, like.
Yeah, but they clearly know if you voted there before, because
Right.
You know, like when I switched to this new polling place, they asked me for my ID. I happily obliged because that's the rule. And then they haven't asked me since. So they know. It's not they know me as a person. They know that I voted there before somehow. You know,
Right.
It's in their record.
It's marked.
It's in the
right.
And
So
my signature, I was worried because my signature is really different. It was really different a decade ago than it is now. It was like very bubbly and young. And I was like, I looked at the way I signed it and I was like, that doesn't look like it matches. Like, I wonder if they're going to.
Can you re-register or change your signature somehow? That's interesting too. But yeah, that's my fear is that this whole mail-in voting for people in Pennsylvania is so new that when something does go wrong, they're not used to it. Like, for example, you know, Krista's used to mail-in voting. You know, she lived in Washington State.
I'm spoiled.
Right. So if something went wrong, you knew what to do because you've experienced it, you know, election cycle after election cycle.
I will say this one was a little bit different. Like, you know, just different rules in general, but nothing too crazy. But Ben actually wrote his signature where you're supposed to on the back, but then he wrote his signature on the seal. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, they don't say that. He's like, well, you know, if it gets open, then they can tell easily. And I'm like, I understand your thinking, but I'm not.
That was actually smart thinking, but I wonder if that could screw it up. Yeah.
No,
right.
He tracked his ballot and it was
good.
counted in. So,
okay, good.
I mean, it worked, but I was like, I'm not risking that. He's like, well, you never know until you try. And I'm like, not this election.
Not this
No,
election.
not this one, yeah.
That's the thing. Not this election.
Absolutely
yeah.
not. But yeah,
but that was part of. I'm sorry. Back to my point. Washington State, you write on the seam. Like, that's, you know, a thing with it. So
yeah,
it makes sense. And you
part of the thing
you have to rip off a piece to prove that you voted. So you keep a little stub. Great news is that there's ice cream places out there that when you bring your stub in, you get free ice cream. Like, it's all a bunch of stuff. But
yeah.
I mean, it becomes like an event that people look forward to. But out here, everyone's terrified that we're going to get scammed or whatever. And it's just not.
While in line, I heard several people having that conversation. And that was why they're voting in person. And I don't even trust this. And I by their conversation were definite Trump supporters. I could by what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy in front of me that was younger. He was all decked out in Eagles gear. So I couldn't really tell with him, but the people that were around me, the majority were definitely Trump supporters. They just were. So that's where my personal worry comes in, is I do think that the majority of the people showing up today, these long lines, I don't think are necessarily good for the Democrats.
Well, look, nothing has changed in 4 years in the sense that if Berks County or Luzerne County, wherever county, we're talking about County. In between, I know you're my, in between the two cities of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we're not going to turn it.
We're not going to turn it blue. The question is, did we narrow the gap? And I believe, with all this turnout we see, we're going to see the same amount, I'm going to say the same amount of Trump supporters, enough to carry these small counties, enough to make Pennsylvania close. But the extra people in line that you're seeing is narrowing the gap. It's more Democrats coming, new Democrats or Democrats that didn't vote than Trump supporters that didn't vote in the last election. That's what I'm saying.
I hope so.
And if that narrows it, that's enough that with the cities mostly carrying the Democratic vote, if we narrow those small counties in between down at all, we're gonna take Pennsylvania because look, Trump won Pennsylvania by 44,000 votes.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
That's nothing. No. It's not a lot at all. My fear is that with this new way of voting for people, they were excited about doing it. Oh, I can vote by mail now. I don't have to take off of work. But with anything new, there's going to be some kinks. There's going to be some things that don't always work right. They don't know what to do when it goes wrong. And so much of it went wrong. I was talking earlier that 2.5 million requested mail-in ballots got returned. People never got them. So now people are thinking in their mind, well, I requested it. I never got it. Am I allowed to vote? And if nobody tells them or they don't seek out the information, they're going to stay home. Yeah. I long for a day where it's like Washington State across all 50 states, right? They automatically mail you
Such a
the
dream.
ballot. You're allowed to either mail it back or return it in person early, or return it on election day if you want to. But most people will eventually just choose to just return it early, so it's easier and smoother, and we don't have to worry about anything. And then election day is still a national holiday. Everybody's off of work, and we just fucking party.
Yeah, that's what it should be. It should be a big
I'd be
party.
down.
I'd be down for that. I mean, speaking of big parties, is anybody drinking tonight? Like, what is the game plan?
I've started drinking.
Okay, I know you have, but what about everybody else?
Well,
what are the rules?
We are doing this remotely, but we can
Okay.
drink right on air. We're not CNN. We don't have to worry about.
All right, we should.
This is not a Mormon party.
Okay, just making sure, because I plan on drinking probably heavily
Good.
because
Good.
I'm too nervous.
Good. Okay, so what do we have to look forward to tonight? Look, I have a list of the polls here, and look, the first ones that come in probably aren't going to matter too much. 6 p.m. You're going to see Kentucky and Indiana start to come in. The thing that we're looking for here is have the gaps closed. Trump is going to win Kentucky. Trump is going to win Indiana. Are the gaps closing at all? That'll be key, because then right after that, 7 o'clock, you have Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Virginia, and Vermont, which we know Vermont's going to go blue. Virginia's going to go blue. South Carolina, who knows? Most likely red, but could be blue. Florida's a less than 1% state, and Georgia is going to be interesting. I'm saying if like a state like Kentucky, where I forget how much Trump won it by. Let's say he won it by 20 to 30 points. If that's like in the 15 to 12 range, maybe we have a real shot at turning Georgia blue, and that would be big.
That would be huge.
And in Florida, these states, we're going to know tonight who won these. I believe North Carolina closes at 7:30. We're going to have results there starting a little after 8. Ohio, and then 8 o'clock a plethora of states. But by then we're going to have an idea of which way this is leaning. I think, believe it or not. Won't be able to call it. There could still be a ton of surprises, but we're going to start having results. We're going to start having exit polls from major pollsters. So we're going to start to get a feel for who's showing up and who's not, which is both terrifying and exciting
at the same time.
So we have that to look forward to. We're gonna end it here because it is about 10 after 5, and I want to get back on here at 6 o'clock, where we'll have Jordan Henning with us. We'll have Alex Bone with us, and we'll start talking about some of these things in more depth. And look, the major news channels have already started their coverage, so we'll have some more information. So unless you guys have anything else, we'll cut it here. We'll be back at 6 o'clock with some more people to talk to, and we're really going to get into it. Then it's I don't want to say the home stretch. I don't want to say the home stretch, but we're in the shit at that point.
Yeah, it's game time, bitches.
And if you haven't voted yet, go now.
You still have time. Go vote.
Yeah,
the line by until 8.
When I was leaving, the line was actually getting longer.
Yeah,
which is interesting. So. Yep. So.
Yeah. So and keep in mind, this is a rule that not everybody knows. If it's 7:59 and you're like, I'm not going to make it, get in line.
You can.
If you are in line by 8 o'clock, they cannot turn you away. If it's 1 o'clock in the morning and it's still around the block, you will still be able to vote.
Yep. They have
get
to
there by 8 o'clock. If you're rushing and you're like, well, I'm going to get there by, 8. I'm going to get there by 7:59. I don't want to hold anybody up. Fuck that.
Hold them up.
Hold them up.
It's their job. It's their job to be held up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you at 6 p.m. on the dot with some guests. And then we'll go 6 to 8, take an hour break, and be back from 9 to 12 or even longer if we're up for it. So we'll see you then. Until then, again, vote if you haven't. We'll see you soon.